China is a really important place to know about. The modern day nation of China has the largest population of any country in the world. So let's take a look back at the very beginning of this political, social, civilization called China, see how it all started. Let's start off with the basic setting, the geography. China is relatively isolated. What I mean by that is you've got a lot of mountains and deserts and stuff over in this general area here, sort of separating China off from the rest of the world. So it's a relatively isolated civilization, and the bedrock of the civilization is going to be, of course, rivers. In this case, the Yellow River and the Yangtze River. You can see them right here. They go across the middle of China, roughly east and west. And this is going to be the heart of Chinese civilization. This is where Chinese civilization as we know it is going to start, in this area here. The population of China, then as now, is not evenly distributed. There's a concentration of the Chinese population. And roughly speaking, it's in the east and the south. If you look at the line I'm drawing here, it's sort of on this side of China. This is where the vast majority of the population lives. The other side is more rural, deserts, mountains, and that kind of thing. This is really where you have the bulk of the people in China. That was true then, and it's true now. Chinese history is broken up into dynasties. We've discussed dynasties in previous chapters. Again, you're talking about sort of a ruling family, a ruling elite. During the period of a dynasty, that's when you have a government that's in charge, and then when these dynasties fall, there's some chaos, and then a new dynasty comes up. The first one, if you go all the way back into the misty shades of time, is the Shang Dynasty. Under the Shang Dynasty, there was very centralized authority. That the government had a lot of power, and from what we know about them, they were kind of harsh. There was animal sacrifice, there was even human sacrifice. And one of the cultural practices they had is they used animal bones and tortoise shells to predict the future. You can see one right here. What they would do is they would write all these characters on a bone, and then they would throw it in the fire, and there'd be a crack. And where the crack went through, that's how you could sort of tell your future. It was sort of like, reading palms, except this map should give you a sense of where they were. You don't have all of China yet. Again, sort of modern-day China goes all the way out here. They don't have that yet. The Shang Dynasty is really just confined to this area over here. This is the group that sort of starts Chinese civilization and the group that's going to go out and conquer all this area, but that's, of course, much later. The Shang Dynasty is just this inner triangle. The next one up is the Zhou Dynasty. And the Zhou were more decentralized. That is to say, they had a government. Okay, so they have a central government. The Duke of Zhou is the grand ruler of the whole thing, but he doesn't have total and absolute authority over every single person in the Chinese Empire. He's the boss, but there are a lot of limits on his power, and there's a lot of power in local rulers and local elites. During the Zhou Dynasty, the boundaries of China are, they're a little bit different, but again, we're sort of very confined to the east. They haven't gone all that west yet. Now I want to tell you about the mandate of heaven. This is an idea that was prominent during the Zhou period and plays a strong influence in Chinese history all throughout, I'm going to say. The idea of the mandate of heaven, it's the justification for where their leaders get their power. The idea is that the emperor is the emperor because heaven wants him to be. That the emperors are sort of blessed by, divine authority. But that when war or famine or natural disasters strike, that means that that's heaven's way of sort of telling the people, of showing the world that the ruler no longer has heaven's support. So again, the idea breaks down something like this. You're a regular Chinese person. the emperor has the right to rule over you. Heaven has, by making them the emperor, that's heaven showing you, hey, listen, this emperor is the boss. You do what that emperor says. But if there's a big old earthquake, if something nasty happens in your town, that's sort of heaven, and the emperor isn't able to help you. That's heaven's way of showing you, or so the idea goes, that the emperor is no good anymore. We don't like the emperor anymore. You are now permitted to go into rebellion. If someone in your town is saying, hey, let's revolt, if something bad has happened, now it's okay. This was a prominent idea, and again, is going to remain important for a long time. And this idea is going to sort of provide fuel for this, what I'm showing you right now, the dynastic cycle. This is a way of understanding history that has strong application to Chinese history and arguably to a lot of history in other places as well. And the idea would go something like this, that when a dynasty begins, there's a period of peace and prosperity, everything is great, and the dynasty is doing really well. Then the dynasty is going to overexpand. They're going to get too big, do too much. They're going to start getting corrupt. They're going to start doing bad things. And when enough of those bad things happen, that's going to lead to a rebellion. The dynasty is going to fall. A new dynasty rises up. That new dynasty enters a period of peace and prosperity, and the cycle goes over and over and over again. China's gone through many, many, many different dynasties throughout its history, and a common idea when you're studying Chinese history is that this is just how history goes. It's just a matter of what step you're on. What number is the period of time in which you live, and you might or might not see a transition from one period to the next. I might ask you at some future time, whether in class or on an essay or something, to let me know whether or not you think this makes sense for all countries at all times, and if so, what number do you think that we are currently living in? The Chinese developed their own form of writing. The ancient Chinese doesn't quite look like Chinese looks today. I've included here a diagram. On the left are ancient Chinese characters, the kind of Chinese writing that they used thousands and thousands of years ago, and on the right, this is more modern Mandarin, which is the sort of dominant writing that's in China today. You can see some of them look alike, some of them have changed a lot. That's in the nature of written languages, is that over many thousands of years they change, they evolve. Later on in the history of Zhou China, the power of the Zhou really starts to fade, but they don't totally get overthrown. This is called the Warring States period, and this is when the local lords would sort of fight each other in wars, and there was a lot of fighting, and the Zhou king would be like, hey, stop fighting, and they would ignore him, but they didn't actually go through the trouble to go overthrow him and to kill him and stuff. So these states that you see right here would all fight. But for a while, they ignored him. Eventually, one of them rises up and becomes the winner and becomes the next dynasty. And that winner, just to let you know, is going to be the Qin dynasty. They're going to win. They're going to beat all these guys. But they got to go through some fighting first. Last but not least, I'm going to throw some philosophy at you. This is a picture of Confucius, the most famous Chinese philosopher. He gives us the first of the 3 Chinese philosophies that we'll study today and that we'll study during this unit. Just to let you know about him as a person, he was a teacher. He had thousands of students. Confucianism, which is his philosophy, is not a religion. It would be inappropriate to understand it as a religion. It's more of a philosophy, that is to say, a code of ethics, a way to live your life, and it advocates, very generally here I'm speaking, moderation, doing things not too much, not too little, order, virtue, obedience to the family, that was huge, and obedience to the government, and just being very rational. And a big idea he had is that you should, obey your parents, that obeying your parents is very, very important. The next philosophy I'm just going to give you a very brief overview on is called Taoism. This is a picture here. This is supposed to be Confucius. This isn't really a historical event, but this is supposed to be Confucius listening to Lao Ji, who's going to be the founder of Taoism. And this right here is Taoism in a nutshell. It comes from, the word Tao, meaning the hidden, everlasting, all-pervading way of the universe. Unlike Confucianism, it's mystical. It views human nature as good, and it's opposed to social convention and government authority. What does that mean in a nutshell? Confucianism was very much, again, obey the government, obey your parents. Confucianism also advocated that you get involved, that you study hard so that you can make the world a better place by becoming a lawyer or, by becoming someone important. So, again, it's sort of a very traditional, like, study hard and one day you can be an important person and make the world a better place kind of thing. Taoism is very different from that. Taoism is, like I said right here, it's mystical. The idea is that, don't bother trying to study hard to get a good job. Who cares about jobs, man? Just, go and live in the woods and, be one with the world, one with the universe. Just find the flow of the universe and go with it, man. It's very much that kind of thing, if that makes any sense, okay? Taoism is opposed to listening to authority, be your own self, be true to the way of the universe. It's not that influential a philosophy in terms of, like, governments never really, adopt it, but it does have an important influence in society. There's even an undercurrent of it that exists today. And the third philosophy is the polar opposite of Taoism. Taoism teaches that people are basically good and you don't really need governments. If everyone just, listened to their true selves, everyone would be happy and we'd just be dancing all the time. Legalism, on the other hand, views human nature as evil. According to legalism, people are naturally evil and the only way to control them is to have a very strong government that enacts very, very harsh punishments. The only way that the government can stop people from just killing each other all the time and doing terrible things is to have very strict punishments for everything, and then people will be so scared that they'll do the right thing. So legalism it's sort of a justification for tyranny, right? It's a justification for censorship, for dictatorship, that you need a strong government, otherwise people are going to go crazy. So you need harsh rules and you need everyone to sort of be quaking in their boots all the time, because otherwise you're going to have chaos. So legalism is sort of Taoism's polar opposite. Taoism views people as good. You don't really have to have that many rules, because if you just let people do their own thing, everyone will be happy. According to legalism, if you let people do their own thing, there's going to be chaos and terribleness, so you need to order people around all the time. And then Confucianism you could sort of understand as a middle ground between these two things.